Interested in speaking at the public hearing, we do have a sign-in sheet that we ask you to sign up so we can acknowledge you. If anybody looking to speak other than board members. I don't know. All right, we got to call the meeting to order.
In the corner.
This is the Finance Committee meeting on December 3rd. Roll call.
Traynere. Brooks.
Yeah.
Ballinger. Perry. Frizzalone. Eustace. Ventura. And Harris. You do have a quorum.
Ms. Ventura, would you
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to entertain a motion on the minutes of November 5th.
Motion.
Second.
Move second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Old business. You don't have any old business? Okay, the first item on the new business. It's a public hearing. I would like to motion to open the public hearing to discuss the proposed cannabis tax in Will County. Then move second. Lana, take the roll.
Traynere.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Ballinger.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Frizzalone. Eustace. Ventura. And Harris.
Yes. Okay, the purpose of this public hearing is to discuss only the adoption of the Will County Cannabis Retail Occupational Tax. The public will have an opportunity to make comments on the adoption of the Cannabis Retailer's Occupational Tax. Please limit your comment to those related to the tax only, and pursuant to the county board rules, please keep your comment to 3 minutes or less. I would like to, okay, we're in public hearing. The public wants to speak? Let's see if we got somebody on the sign-in sheet.
You do have somebody.
Somebody on the sign-in sheet? We've got 2 sign-in sheets up front.
No.
No public?
Only on the sheets.
You gotta do better turnout.
Yeah.
Steve, you with us.
Am I the public or I'm-
You with us. We'll knock you later.
I'm not a public.
Hang tight. I guess we go with Jim first. Oh, hold up, Jim. We got somebody waving at
Oh,
you.
you do? Oh, you're good. Perfect.
All right, you have a comment?
Sure.
You want to come up?
Sure.
Sign in, please. I think that's all the
Yes, just a minute.
When you're ready, just give us your name.
My name is Monahan.
Have a seat if you like.
Sure.
Microphone's on.
I live here in Joliet. And I'm here to encourage you to be open to the dispensaries, in particular the tax that's available. For me, it comes down to the fact that people are already using marijuana. That's not going to change. I think the availability of the revenue gives us an opportunity to mitigate some of the problems and concerns that we might have. Things like providing funding to train law enforcement on what is still not permissible, what is still illegal about use of marijuana. Could fund a variety of different things. Again, enforcement of driving under the influence, any other, activities or behaviors that are illegal under that act. So if you pass up the opportunity to gather that revenue, I think you're missing the boat. The other is, for me, what I primarily support this is that, again, people are already using marijuana. They're purchasing it through the black market. One of the main motivations for the law that was developed over multiple years, and it was the result of many compromises, debates, discussions, and really done, in my opinion, very thoughtfully, was recognizing that we needed to separate the black market from legitimate tax-paying businesses. Black market where you can also gain access to other substances versus legitimate businesses that are going to sell this. They're going to demand to see the age of the person, and that's the only thing that they're going to sell. So again, this is a really sensitive issue. I really respect the concerns, the genuine concerns that people have, but that's my position and my encouragement to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
I'm supportive of the tax. All indications show that there are costs that go along with the sales of legal marijuana. I've seen some articles that say for every dollar you collect, you'll spend $3. But we will have some additional cost to our judicial system, primarily the court system. We will have, according to the mental health people, maybe a slight rise in mental health. In other words, our health department will be hit with some additional demand for services. And we need to offset those costs through the tax. So I would support the tax going forward, but I think it is something that would probably be necessary. And it also could help with, we have programs for addiction programs, Kathleen Burke, and some of that funding can also maybe go to education. Those taxes go to education, so it could have some positive effect. So that's all I think I want to say in public hearing.
Jim, I don't think we ran any numbers yet, but I think the cost will be there whether we pass this or not. So I think that's a good point that we made. Jackie?
And I would say not just in Will County, because this is going to be legal in this state. And there are no walls between counties. And people move around, they travel, they shop. So if there are cost increases associated with the legalization of cannabis, I think it's going to be really important to collect some amount of tax revenue.
Steve, you have a comment regarding the tax?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a different opinion probably of most of the people on the board, but to me, this is a regressive tax, and we don't need to be taxing the people of Illinois any more money. And all this is a mindset that maybe there's a windfall of cash going to come in. Maybe there isn't. But we don't even need the money at this point. We don't know what we need, what we don't need. But I know one thing, that when you talk about the black market, if you're charging 40 cents on a dollar tax, why would people, they would go get the bag of legal pot, so they got the legal bag, then go see their drug dealer and get the stuff off the street because it's cheaper. I mean, people aren't stupid. I mean, people want to get their stuff. I don't smoke pot, so I call it stuff. But they get that stuff on the street and they pay $1 for one. Let's just say they pay $10 for a gram. I don't even know what it costs. Now you go to the dispensary and it costs $14 for the same gram, and then you're going to try and sell it like it's better stuff. Well, maybe the stuff that their guy has on the street is just as good or better. You don't know. None of us are out in the street buying it, I don't think. So to me, this is like promoting the black market, for one thing. And the other thing is that why should we be taxing the people on the bottom layer of society all the time? You know, the people that ain't millionaires. Because the people that are millionaires, they don't really care. So the poorer people are paying the gas tax, 19 cents, right? You're paying, how many taxes went up? I think it was 20 taxes went up this year from the state of Illinois. Who pays them? All the people that live here. That means poor people and middle class people. And who's going to do most of the pot stuff? The poor people and the middle class people, right? So you're going to charge them some more tax. What the hell? I think it's totally wrong.
Thanks, Steve. Mike?
Yeah, I had a couple comments. I do agree with Steve on one point, and that is the black market sales will go up. That's what's been shown in other states. When you look at 35 to 40 cent tax, 40% tax, which when you put all the taxes on it, that's what it will be. Black market will be cheaper, and if you look at Colorado as an example, their black market sales did go up. I don't agree with Steve on the tax. I do think we ought to tax. Even if we opt out here, there are municipalities that are going to sell it, and as Jim said, we are going to have costs. The one thing that I'm going to suggest when we come to the resolution, which says that it would go into the county cannabis retailer's occupation tax fund, I'm going to suggest that in the resolution we amend it to say that that money will go to the health department and to Kathleen Burt's office for drug prevention initiatives. And all that money should go there. I know everybody thinks this is going to be a big windfall. You know, the state's anticipating $57 million, and that's based on about a 25 to 30% tax. We're going to have maybe 3.75%. At most, we may see $80,000 in taxes. This isn't going to be a giant windfall for the counties. It is going to be for the state, and we did see this when we went to NACO again, that the states are profiting greatly on it, but the counties are not. The counties are incurring more costs than the money that they're bringing in. So it's not going to be a windfall for the counties, for sure. But I am going to propose that amendment that we take that money and have that go to the health department, because I think that's where the biggest costs are going to be. I know that the sheriff's department is going to have to police this, but they can do that in normal course of their action, just like they do now when they make a stop for an arrest. The courts will have some additional cases, certainly, but I think the health department and Kathleen Burt's initiatives are going to suffer the most, and I think that's where the money should go from this fund.
Say all of the money, Mike? All
Yes. Rachel?
Yeah, first I want to say to Steve's point that this is not a regressive tax. This is a user tax. You choose to purchase this item just like alcohol or cigarettes. So it's not imposed on everybody. It's imposed on only those who want to use the product. So I do encourage taxes like that. As far as Mike's point, that was the point I was going to, an opposite point was that I like the fact that it was being put into its own fund so that we could see how much money is being brought in. You know, we've already set our budget so we can see where is enforcement needed, where is the health department, where's education, but ultimately I would like to see some of this money go to reparations of people it's wronged in the past. And so where those services are best at, we don't know yet. And so I'd like to see how this money comes in. If indeed there is income coming in, we can set that in next year's budget. But Mike, to your point, if you think there's no money coming in, then why would we put that in the health department's budget? Because then they might be relying on money that wouldn't be there, so that would be unduly punishing them.
But they're going to be affected.
Right, so I think that by having it in a separate fund, that was the point I was going to make, because I like that part of it, that this is going to be tracked separately, so that when we work on next year's budget, we can see what money came in and where is it that's spent, and then we can have a whole lot of conversations and workshops about the best place to use that money. So I don't think adding an amendment here, pigeonholing that money may or may not, that money may or may not be there, is appropriate with this tax ordinance.
Julie?
I just had a question for Rachel. You mentioned reparations. Can you give us more?
Yes.
What are you thinking of?
So the
What does
people
that
who have
mean?
been primarily affected by being imprisoned because of marijuana are people of color. And so people who are being released now, that, you know, they have to have their records expunged, and then how does that work for them to get jobs and housing in our area? In the past, because you've had a record, you have to reveal that. It's very difficult for those individuals to get housing or employment. That's not like temp agencies who then further, you know, have wage theft. So we want to make sure that we're setting up opportunities here locally so that people have an opportunity to be on our tax bases and have an equal footing. So what does that mean? I don't know. I guess it depends on how the state expunges it, how quickly they expunge their records. You know, we want to right the wrongs of what was illegal is now legal. And it's not fair for people to not be able to get jobs because of it.
Jackie and Amanda?
I would agree with Rachel, and really on the point of like where we put this money, we are separating it out, which is great. I think we need to really take a long look and see how much money and where it should go. I don't necessarily believe it should go to Kathleen Burke. Her primary objective is dealing with the opioid crisis. We don't know that there's a marijuana crisis, and certainly nobody has presented any data here that suggests that if somebody uses marijuana, all of a sudden they're going to go out and start buying opioids.
Right now.
Yeah, I would say just the opposite, if anything. And to Steve's point, Steve, remind me, we never want to go for a drink together, because I'm guessing your alcohol would be black market as well, because we tax the hell out of alcohol.
A lot of it is, Jackie. I mean, if I owned the bar, I would probably get arrested for buying stuff at Kenwood.
I want to say that I support what Rachel is talking about, keeping it in a separate fund, because I think that it's important as our responsibility to keep track of this closely, to see how we, you know, can use that money to help our residents. Also, to speak to her point, part of the state law is, you'll have to read it for all the descriptions, but there's something called the 3 R's, which what she is speaking about is actually going to be part of what the state is going to be helping to fund. I think it would be interesting to see how that goes with the state and if we can supplement that in some way. But I do agree that we need to tax this as much as we can and keep it separate so that we're able to really be responsible with that money and see, I think it'll give us a really good idea of where we're at once this, it's like a good way to keep track of where we're at and what we need to fix throughout the process of this, of cannabis becoming legal in our state.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Sue?
That's what.
I just wanted to let the committee know that I am working on a position paper that will be sent to the county board office prior to the executive committee meeting on Thursday. I just wanted to make a correction. According to an article that was in the Journal of American Medical Association, Internal Medicine, September 2018, opioid death rate is accelerated in jurisdictions legalizing marijuana use. So there's not just anecdotal information out there, there is factual information, and much of that will be discussed in my position paper later this week.
Thanks, Sue. Next, Herb and Gloria.
Mr. Chairman, I've heard some resolutions being introduced this morning and earmarking this money. I think I would be very much interested in seeing how much when that table comes out, what this would generate, and then secondly, we can start the dialogue of where it should go. But I think I would be very much interested in seeing how much. If we're talking about taking a whole pot and giving it to one department, I'll be interested in knowing, first of all, how much we're talking about generating. Then we can talk about some resolutions where it should be spent.
Thanks. Gloria? Huh?
And how we're going to spend.
All right. So I know. So I like, yeah, my turn. So again, I understand. I know it's a fund, but I still think we need some clarification that the funds from the money from this fund will go to help offset costs incurred by the sale of cannabis. Because there's nothing in there to say that. So you're collecting it, and it can go anywhere. So I do think it would be nice to have some kind of clarification statement to say that the funds are going to be used in, in whatever way we see fit, but to offset costs we incur as a county for the sale. So,
Denise?
Thank you. I was just going to that point, maybe the language that we want to have is, we collect it into a separate fund, but the language in there is to offset the impact of cannabis use, period. It's broad enough that allows us to give the health department, sheriffs, or wherever we need, but an understanding that that is what we're going to do with the money. But we first see what it is, with the understanding that it goes to the impact.
Yeah.
As a
Rachel?
possibility,
So,
whatever the impact.
I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea, but my concern is long-term, you know, if this normalizes it, we don't say, oh, alcohol sales has to go to the offset of, you know, Alcohol Anonymous or, you know, problems like that. So in the long term, as this normalizes and becomes less of a shock value to our society, have we just pigeonholed ourselves into forcing money into areas that maybe they're not needed in the long run? So I understand it's a solution to what Gloria's brought up, that we could, I guess, spend this money anywhere right now, but in the long term, we don't do that with some of our other taxes. So I would have concerns about doing that with this one.
Jackie, then Jim?
I would just say that that also would potentially prohibit us, unless we add some additional language, from dealing with the reparation costs, as Rachel brought up. Because there are costs to the people who have been incarcerated, even at costs we don't even know about. And people going to be needing to clear their record. We don't know what that is yet. We just don't know. So I would hate to really pigeonhole that money too much until we really know what we're talking about.
Jim?
Okay, well, let me say, stated earlier I supported the tax. I won't support this resolution because of that. The resolution should just be the tax.
Right.
Period. The whole thing should be taken out on how you're going to use it.
But there's nothing that says how to use it. It just says it has to be put in a fund.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
And then names the fund. That's it.
it. That's it. This is Mike's idea.
So you're going to do a special fund, right? And then,
We'll talk about it later.
We can define the fund later.
and I do agree though, that it should be to mitigate the impact. Now let me tell you about reparations in Will County. You know, part of the problem we have in Will County in general, you know, and I used to run into these folks once in a while, hanging around the Sam's in Joliet. And of course, they're usually out there asking for something. And, you know, when the prison system releases people, they just open the door. Here you go. You know, and where are they at? They're in Will County. And they become, potentially in Will County, I don't want to say problems, but certainly these are people that are let out. They have no resources, they have no money, and they're hanging around this Walmart parking lot, you know. Are those Will County's responsibility, or is that the state's responsibility? I'm just saying that you have to be very careful, because they are perhaps in dire situation, you know, they look for everything they can get, you know. And I'm not saying they're scamming, but they want to survive.
They have a system they can survive in, maybe it'll be a different.
They want to survive. But my point is, though, is when they're let out of these state facilities, they just come in here, you know, now they're Will County residents.
They are our responsibility.
They're our responsibility. No, I think they're the state's
Well,
responsibility.
like it or not, they're here though. So
I understand. And most of them move on, but.
Jim, I disagree with you that.
Yeah?
20 years in corrections.
I know
They don't just open up the door and let them out, trust me.
All right, they give
We get transportation money, they give an address, and they go back home wherever they give that address.
Some of them.
That's my defense of the state.
Okay. Don't defend the state.
You're pointing at me, Jim.
You don't work for them anymore.
Now you're both wondering, it's about a tax.
Okay, okay with the resolution as is?
Yes.
All right, I'd like the motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Lana, roll call.
Don't start talking about horse.
We have
Traynere?
Here.
Brooks?
Yeah.
Ballinger?
No.
This is a public hearing.
Oh, you want to come out?
Barry.
Yes.
Frizalone.
Yes.
Eustace.
Yes.
Ventura. Yes. And Harris, you are out of public hearing.
We wouldn't have to have any discussion now, we did it.
Yes.
Right.
Motion to accept the ordinance,
Yeah.
resolution.
I
Ordinance, it says ordinance printout, so.
will
Then it
second
said to
that,
adopt the Will County retail operation tax. That's number 2.
and I'll second the motion.
The motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, roll call.
Traynere.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Dollinger.
No.
Barry.
Yes.
Frizalone. Eustace.
No.
Ventura.
Yes.
And Harris.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the change request for the ERP project with HSO. I'm gonna ask
I'll move.
And I'll second, but I want to know more.
Mike, Shay, would you come up and give us a
So
brief
Mike, be
history?
brief, please.
Do I need to sign in for the public?
No.
You do have 3 minutes.
Hit the star.
I'm right.
Hit the star, Mike. Turn your mic on.
Oh, yeah, it's your turn. Go ahead.
The ERP project continues to advance and move ahead. It has been evolving. We've been communicating that through ad hoc IT and the steering committee. One thing has become apparent, we did not have the staff capacity that we anticipated originally at high level, right? We're not talking about like data entry or low level tasks. We're talking about high level thought, high level of understanding. And to help accommodate that need, we're asking for the change request to extend the timeline through August with a much abbreviated schedule during the audit for the finance staff. This is a project that basically someone in my position probably does once in their career. Probably most of the people in the other positions, so finance, budgeting, et cetera. The last time we did this process was '92. It took them 4 years. We thought we could do it in a year. We thought that was going to happen. That did not happen. This is known as the most difficult project that IT departments, not just at the county, but in general, tackle. And we believe that this change request will get us through that project. We hope it will get us through that project. There are other complicating factors involving payroll, which are not on the agenda today, which we will be bringing forward as time goes on. We don't know if there's any costs associated with that or not. With that, I'm glad to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
I really would like, thank you, better description of ERP and HSO. I'm
Sure.
understanding
Fair
that
enough.
this is
I
a,
did not
technology.
explicitly outline this.
Yes, please.
The ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning. That is the finance, HR, budgeting, payroll. That is how we handle money.
It's our new software.
That is the new software
Okay.
system. Our incumbent vendor is New World Systems. It is a green screen, flat file system. Initially put into operation, I believe, in '92 through '96. And so we're actually jumping, one of the other things is we're jumping 4 generations of technology. We're literally going from, 1990 to a cloud-based
To Windows 10.
ERP. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we are.
DOS to Windows 10.
So I mean,
Got
it's an unbelievable jump. We are making ground. I do not want anybody to leave here with the impression that we are not. We are making a lot of ground. HSO is our vendor. That is the business partner we have selected. Now, just so you're aware, the way that agreement is written, we're actually purchased the product and licenses, et cetera, directly from Microsoft. HSO is our implementation vendor, and we can choose to carry them forward or not. One of the things that we wanted to do in this process was to split the vendor and the applications, right? So we're in Microsoft's application, and we can choose what vendor, although we are with HSO through the implementation, right? That's the deal. But we are not bound to them indefinitely. That's one of the things that has happened to us in the past. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I needed a refresher. I am not on the IT committee. I don't know that everybody else here is, and not privy to all the work that's been done up until now. So even if you've said it here before, I figure it doesn't It bears repeating.
The words.
Thank you.
Jim?
Well, first, Mike, let me say, you never put it online until you know it's absolutely nothing. Test, retest, make sure it all plugs are on. But HSO, here's what I need to know, the relationship between, they're the implementation. When you say we don't have enough high-level folks on staff, I don't quite know what that means. I mean, isn't that what HSO is supposed to help with? And or not, and if we need a consultant or someone else to come in, whether it's through HSO or through directly, why wouldn't we bring in some of the expertise we need on a temporary basis? They're not going to be permanent hires. Because certainly, in this case, time is money. The longer this gets delayed, the more it costs us in the long run.
That is correct.
So I guess I'm asking why aren't you coming to the board and saying, I'm going to need to hire some more people, or whether it's within the department, I don't know, or whether HSO can provide additional services. So I guess that's my question to you.
So the county, and I think, a comparison to our peer counties would bear this out. Will County is very thinly and efficiently staffed, right? We are, I have a third of the staff of my peer departments, and that's not a complaint, that's just the way it is, right? And Will County is very efficient and is very thinly staffed. But the problem is, when we take on a project like this, what that means is that there are only so many hours that people with full understanding of the topics can devote to those projects. And when we talk about going outside and hiring somebody, the time to educate those people about the project becomes the equivalent of hiring those people. So, and I'm going to pick on Karen. I'm going to pick on Karen. Karen has X number of hours, and for Karen to educate a consultant about the specifics of our situation would take so much time, because we seriously discussed looking at consultants and hiring consultants, and sometimes it's just more efficient to have the people who understand do overall. That's adding to our time frame, and in this case, that's adding to our expense, but this is something that has to be right.
Well, let me say that's your assessment of it.
I think it's not just my assessment. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's the assessment of the finance and budget and the steering committee.
Wouldn't necessarily be my assessment, because there's consultants out there, I'm fairly confident, that have done these same implementations who would have an understanding. But I think what you're doing is certainly, there's nothing wrong with the way you're doing it. It's just going to take longer, and it's going to cost us more money in the long run. And I'm not so sure that your assessment or internal staff's assessment is nobody else can do it except us is necessarily the way I would assess it. But I'm not arguing with you about it.
Well, what are we paying these consultants for now? I mean, there is a cost in here for consultants.
Correct.
So what are they getting paid? I mean, the timeline breaks out.
We're paying them for a lot of stuff. So we're paying them for, that's HSO.
Yeah.
Okay. So we purchased D365. Okay, D365 is a huge product. Okay, it has about 10,000 installs around the world, and it does everything from a one-room boutique to Dell or Microsoft itself. Huge enterprises. So what we have to do is we have to configure it to our needs, right? So we have to go in and cut out the verticals that we don't use without damaging the product. We have to go in and say, this is our chart of accounts. An example of some of the work that the county is doing, that they're helping us with, I think we expected more help with, right? But they are helping with, is the chart of accounts, right? Our chart of accounts is ancient, right? So if you want to go in and find out how much the county spent on PCs, okay? You cannot go in. There is nowhere to look. You have to go through the small furniture line and break out the small furniture and move the PCs, right? So we have rebuilt the entire chart of accounts. Well, that also changes the fund, the fund connection mapping, that changes the revenue mapping, and and those things are changing as we go, right? They're
So the
constantly
consultants
evolving.
are telling you how to fix the product, but our staff is doing the work of breaking it all down to put it in the product.
We are making the decisions that they execute. The thing is that sometimes those decisions are the work, right? One of the things that we're taking on, for example, is they're training us to do workflow, right? So this is how you process an invoice, okay? So they're training us to do that ourselves. The idea is that we will manage our own workflows, right? So if compliance issues or things come up, we will reorganize that. But for example, one invoice on a lapse period PO that I'm working on, right, has 12,000 potential outcomes, right? So they're helping me narrow it down and making sure that the workflow that I construct actually connects to the data that we want it to and the reports that come out from that. They are helping us build internal capacity, right, as well as configuring the system and helping us comply with that. And it's a lot.
Mike and Jim?
Yeah, what I don't understand is how we got here. If HSO is our implementer and consultant, when they consulted us initially, didn't they give us any expectation of what we needed from our people for us to be able to say, you can't do that in this amount of time? It's going to take us longer? I mean...
Yes, they did. They did do that. And we agreed, no, we agreed to it. But that time is simply not enough. We underestimated how long some of those tasks were going to take us.
We did, or they did, telling us how long it was about?
Both.
So my concern is, when does it start? You spend $500,000 now to extend things. Do you come back 6 months later and said, we underestimated again, we need another $500,000? I mean, we based this all on the numbers that we originally had. Are we going to just keep pouring money out?
So the original budget outline for this project was not to exceed $2.5 million. Right? Okay, we have spent $800,000. Okay, and this is for $584,000 more. Okay, we believe this timeline is achievable to complete this project. Okay, and I, was very frank with the consultant. The consultant vendor are one thing in this case. They're not really two separate roles, but I was very frank with them. One bite at the apple. You cannot come back and keep biting at us, right? Now, could something unforeseen happen? Sure, yes, absolutely something unforeseen could happen. But we believe, and we being, the steering committee believe that this time frame and this dollar amount can allow us to achieve it. And we have much better understanding of the effort that we can put forward, right? Part of it is we were looking at the system and what it could provide us, and we were optimistic. And we were hopeful, and we still are optimistic and hopeful, right? But we're also much more grounded in bringing this forward than I think the original proposal was. Just being frank.
Jim?
Yeah, Mike, I don't want to kind of beat the same drum, but when we talk about managing the overall project, and you talked about chart of accounts, and I'm not totally unfamiliar with this, because I've done it on a smaller scale, but for example, say that's a huge project. You're absolutely right, it is, but it doesn't mean you couldn't run in our accounting people, our outside people, our auditors, and so forth to help do those charts, those accounts, and give some opinion and help with that, and say, here's what we think you should eliminate, here's what you can talk, whatever. So the thing is when I talk about outside help or consultants, it's not necessarily IT people. I mean, now, you can't tell me our auditors don't have some familiarity with what we do, and they make recommendations on these accounts. All I guess I'm saying is that, look at the bigger picture. If there's people, and if that work's all done, it's done. I mean, and you're right, it takes a lot of time to do that, to go through the chart of accounts, but perhaps they could have done it and then just given them recommendations, and it could have saved us time and money. I'm not just talking about IT people, So I'm just wanting to throw that out to you, because I would still ask you to look and say, what outside help, and talk to other folks, you know, Karen or whoever, and say, who can we bring in to help with the process? You know, so.
We are starting to.
Anyways, I'm just gonna stop there, you know.
And we are, and just so you're aware, we are widening out the purview of people working on the project internally.
Okay.
We are there.
Rachel?
I appreciate you telling us that this is still coming in under cost even with the increase, because one of the things I don't see here is what the original contract was for or what was budgeted. So for HSO, you know, it's hard to hold the consultants accountable when we don't know, well, I don't know because I wasn't paying attention before I ran to this office to those types of details. What we agreed to and what their end of the agreement was and what our end of the agreement and how it's, you know, pushing this time frame out, how that changes the contract or doesn't change it. So I appreciate you telling us that is still coming in under budget, and in the future, not just you, any of these departments might be helpful for some of those newer people to give us the backstory or what is expected.
Just to give a little bit of perspective on this also, McHenry County is actually implementing the exact same finance system we are. Okay? And this is without payroll, so separately, just their finance system. You know, they budgeted for, I believe, 3 years for $4.3 million. Okay, it's the exact
And
same
we did 1 year
system.
for 2.5.
Well,
We're
we did 1 year for like
optimistic.
800. And now part of that is because HSO wants to expand in the public vertical. They're looking to gain public sector customers. They want us to be a reference. They want us to be an example for them. So, you know, they underbid. Now, I don't mind somebody hungry underbidding if they're capable. Well, HSO is managing thousands of installs of D365 around the world, right? So, you know, we were confident they had the capacity, and then it demonstrated capacity, right? But I don't. We are very fiscally constrained with the county, appropriately so, right? We have thin staff. You know, we bid projects, and you know, your point's well taken. Maybe it's a little too tight, right? And maybe
It's gonna give us
the list of guidance.
Or
And it just did, right? I mean, the evidence is here.
Or a seasonal time person that costs less money than.
Well, and see, that's the problem, is that the time that we need to dedicate to the project is not kind of data entry time or frontline staff or AP invoice.
Okay.
It's people like Karen or Rashawn or Melissa.
Okay.
It's people with a high level of internal understanding about our business and what we do, and the environment that we operate in. You know, the other thing is that, you know, state's attorneys have issued so many opinions over time in every county that the rules and internal controls of all the counties are going like this, right? So we used to share a real estate system with DuPage County. We used to share a traffic system with DuPage County, right? And eventually our state's attorney and their state's attorney disagreed on so much that the system had to be split, right? Well, we continued to run it this way. They continued to run it that way. So finding someone, and you know, Karen and the staff are working on expanding out and bringing some more. I know that they're bringing more people in, they're bringing in that picture. But finding somebody with the deep understanding of our specific needs is not simple. And
I just wanted to make a quick comment. One thing I think that Mike has done before, and I forget that some people haven't been here for all this time, is reviewing some of these bigger projects, because Will County has had a successful history of bringing in these big projects way lower budgets than other counties. And sometimes we lose track of that because, and believe me, it's been a difficult process. I know Mike and all the other partners in this have spent lots and lots of time battling it out to reach a compromise. People like something different than the other group. They have to find a common ground. But we have a very successful history of projects that could have cost us several $1 million, bringing them in much less than that. But I think it is a good discussion point here of what was originally budgeted and what the bid price was. And so we have to go up a little bit. Nobody likes that, but at the same point, we're still below our original target. And that happened on the real estate system and some of the other projects too.
Real estate was estimated between 5 and 20 million, and I did it for 517,000.
Wow.
So, you know, this is my, actually just since the executive branch IT assessment was done, This is the 17th implementation that we have undertaken. This is the first one to go in the budget, or the original bid budget.
And Mike has lost his job for that.
True. So,
see, that's my point, is, you know, that original budget was too tight, and you need to put some resources to bring it in, that the delay is gonna cost us more money and maybe put more resources, some additional resources into the project. You know, I talked about outside, because you're, if I understood you correctly, Mike, is that the top line staff is at its capacity and can't do anymore. I mean, if there's ways to bring some additional resources into the project to move it,
the top line
that's the
staff.
way. Yeah, that was my point.
But Jim, and I appreciate your point, but I think if you brought in the finance department, the budget department, the auditor's office, some of the other players, and who all worked really hard, they would say their career staff who are going to be here for a long term, or they've been here a long time and they know the internal process, bringing in a consultant may cost us more to bring them up to speed, where the people who are going to have to use this every day, the Melissas and the Karens and the Rashons and everybody, they kind of know better. And we might spend a bunch of money on a consultant, and they may not get it right. Where the people who are doing it every day, who are delivering a top-notch product for us. I mean, I took
consultant, but it could be somebody
right.
else internally. I mean, it could be higher. I mean, I'm just throwing out.
I mean, this has been a point of, I think, debate, is how much time can people dedicate, because like you've already identified, they can't do their job and do all, spend 40 hours a week on doing try, but I mean, they're working Saturdays, sometimes the whole finance department's here on Saturday, which, I mean, just to keep up with things. So, and I know other people work after hours or weekends, so, but I think that was discussed, I think, right? I mean, they deliberated, do we bring in somebody, and I think they decided, and that's the recommendation, is that we use the people who are using it every day and who know. I mean, everybody says we're special, but I think Will County is special in that we have a lot of top-notch processes. And that's why I mentioned about the implementations, because I think we all should be proud of that the fiscal responsibility of the board is carried out by, and I think that's probably why they did pinch a little tighter, because they thought they could do it with less, and we found out we couldn't. So we're trying to make it work. So.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Yeah.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, carries. Thanks, Mike.
And Melissa, I'm not worried about you. You deal with that.
You have no idea.
The next item is appropriating grant funds in the sheriff budget from the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program, known as SCAP.
Thank you. Motion.
Motion, second.
Question.
Have a question?
Was there a second?
Can we get a second?
There was a second.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mike.
Yeah, so, no, I know it's not until executive that we're adding 2 COs. This money is going where? To pay for the last 2 COs that we did last year with this money? Because last year, we decided that we were going to use this money to increase the COs because we got grant money that was related to the federal prisoners that we
Full-time
have.
salaries.
So is this going to continue to pay for that?
So this grant money's already been spent.
Have the sheriff come up and speak on that.
Turn your mic off, too.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The intent of this is to add 2 additional correctional deputies. So we did it, and I think it was February, at the direction of this committee, to add 2 full-time COs with that SCAT grant money, which we did.
We did.
That's where that money went.
Okay, but their salary didn't end. It keeps going. So the intention was that every year when you get this, it would be allocated to those 2 people that we put on based on this grant. You can't keep adding to every time you get a new grant, because then how do you pay them the next year?
That was not my understanding, and maybe I misinterpreted what the committee's intent was. But what would we do with those 2 employees if we didn't get the grant?
It is going to the salaries.
They go away.
No.
No, so last year, what we decided was this money was being used for all kinds of different things. When we got this grant money for tractors,
Right.
stuff like that. So we decided that this money, since it had to do with federal
Right,
prisoners,
but
right?
but that's
That
what
we were
they're
gonna hire
saying.
2 COs we were gonna hire 2 COs based on us getting that money.
Okay.
All right, so we hired those 2 COs, but we have to continue paying, using the grant money to pay for that.
That's what this is saying.
No, now they're gonna add another 2. So like every year we get 160,000, we're gonna add 2 people.
Where does it say that? That's not what this is.
It doesn't say it, that's my concern, because in the executive, we're adding 2 COs, and that's what I wanna know, where's that money coming from? Because if it's this money should be paying for the 2 we added last year, as
Well, the
long
only
as we
thing
get the
this
grants.
says is it's going to full-time salaries. It doesn't say anything about new officers, it doesn't say
Just
anything.
told
But that's not what our our resolution's about. That's one on the executive committee, and that would be for
I
the
understand that,
executive
but that's why I'm asking,
this
what
is
is this
saying-
money gonna be
He's
used
asking
for?
if this is gonna
For 2
fund
new people.
2 new people, or the 2 existing people it's already funded.
And it's saying it's just going to full-time salaries,
Well,
so.
That's the
it
question,
doesn't
let the sheriff
specify.
speak.
Sheriff's telling me
It's gonna be 2 new people.
Correct. Our
we
request is
can't-
for 2 additional.
we can't add 2 people every year we get a $160,000 grant, because the following year, we have to pay $160,000 for the 2 guys, which is about what the number, I think, comes out to.
How are those salaries for the last 2 being paid? Is it's coming out of the current sheriff's budget?
Can you repeat the question?
How are the 2 officers you hired this year currently being paid for next year's budget, right? Are they in just the sheriff's overall payroll expense, or are they separated out with this grant money?
No, they're not separate.
Okay,
Correct, they would be in the full-time salaries.
so this amount is going into the full-time salaries to increase his budget for the salaries.
163.
When, what I'm saying is they've already budgeted for those officers.
We can't every year. Yeah, they budgeted for them, to increase their budget. We can't increase
Okay,
their
to that
budget
point
every
though,
year.
Mike, calm down. The point is, then what they should have done was had $163,000 less dollars in their current salary for those 2 other
I agree.
officers and waited. So
I
my point is
agree.
they've already budgeted that money for those officers. Too bad.
Jim?
You know, this money, when you look at the budgets, you say we're gonna budget so much for the sheriff's personnel, it doesn't identify the revenue stream. It just says you can fund it. This money should have been identifying that revenue stream that was already going to fund that. And may have been, I don't know. You know, may have been. I mean, it doesn't all come out of, you know, it goes in the corporate fund. It doesn't segregate. So from my perspective, this $160,000 is already spec to fund the current staff.
Right, which they've already built
So-
into their budget, so.
So, you know, well, I'm not so sure. They're gonna take this 160,000, hire 2 more additional.
We can argue that this 163 is going to those officers, and their new budget is.
And increase their budget. I'm just telling you that this money, in my opinion, is already spent. It's already in their budget. You know, now they wanna segregate it.
Right, but so to
And said we wanna
Jackie's
hire
point-
2 more people.
Right, to Jackie's point, this is just saying to put it into their budget. The other thing you guys have an issue with is hiring the 2, which is not this.
I think that's,
we've always said.
That's exactly what it says. They'll think they have the authority to hire 2 more.
There's nothing.
This body has always,
Mike got the floor, guys.
This body has always said, when we get a grant, if we hire somebody, if the grant goes away, the person goes away. Last year when we hired 2 people, it was based on this grant. Yes, if the grant went away, the 2 people would go away. Now, that doesn't mean we let those 2 people go through attrition, you go down to. But those people were hired because we had a grant. And the grant, as we continue to get it, would fund the 2 people that we got, not an additional 2. So this means in the next 10 years, if we get 163,000 every year, we're gonna hire 2 more people every year and have 10 people, or 20 people at the end of the 10 years. That's not what the grant was based on.
Nick and Ray?
I appreciate, Mike is correct, that has been kind of the stated policy. If grants come and go, the positions go away. However, we oftentimes, if it's important work, we find a way to fund it within the budget. This issue, though, has been kicked around quite a bit on staffing levels, and I know we've had studies and what the staffing level should be and how much we pay in overtime. I think if we want to beat this issue up, let's pull out what the staffing levels are supposed to be. Because when you staff appropriately, you oftentimes have less overtime pay, which is, and sometimes it's better to pay the overtime and use existing staff. But I think it's a little bit misunderstanding. The issue is how many staff are we supposed to have at the jail? And I don't know that number, but how many are we supposed to have to be adequately staffed so we can manage the overtime? Because I know this board in the past has been very adamant about how much we fund for overtime. This would have been a great conversation to have during the budget process, to say how much are we putting in overtime, how much are we paying staff to reduce that overtime, not 2 weeks after we just passed the budget. I mean,
And where are the levels at the prison? We were coming down, people. We haven't seen any updates on any of that.
Well, let's have that discussion, because I think some of the folks making this argument were the ones who argued about overtime pay. Where is our overtime pay? Where is our staffing level? Based on the studies we paid to do to say what's the adequate staffing levels. Because I don't think we're at the studies we did, unless we absolutely disagree with the study, I think we're still below the
But
staffing
the
level.
issue here is not hiring.
Yeah, question? Yeah, thank you. Doesn't the county board typically have a resolution before them that we set the actual number of deputies?
That's what that's my point, that's not what this is.
Right. Well, that was my point. At that point, I think that's the time to make the argument that we're not, we don't want to have that.
We're already appropriating the money for the people.
We're not, we're putting it in the full-time salary.
Right, but the 160,000 that would go in
After they were totally fine.
could fund those 2 individuals from last year, should the board decline to move forward on hiring the additional individuals. Correct? I think that's kind of what we're all saying. I think we're all just saying the same thing.
Just trying to get ahead of it right now.
Right.
Jackie?
This resolution does not talk about the hiring of 2 additional people. It just talks about moving the money into the sheriff's budget. I would like to vote on this resolution as it is written, and I would like the executive committee to take up the issue of the 2 additional hires. This is not our charge today. Our charge is just to move this money. If you don't want to move it, you want to give the grant money back to the feds, then say that.
That's not the point, but I don't want the
It is
committee
the
coming
point.
back and saying.
It is the point.
When it comes up in executive, and they say, well, Mike, you already voted for the money from the 2 people.
No, it's not you saying I
it
voted to
doesn't
move the
say
money to the
2
full-time
people.
salaries. You're
When we get to
adding something
executive,
that's not there.
where are you gonna tell me the money's coming from when we get to executive?
But you're
For the
reading
2
into
new
something
people.
that's not there, Mike.
Where are you gonna tell me the
It's not
money's
there.
coming for the 2 new people when we get to executive?
When you get to executive, then you can talk about whether or not you want to hire the 2 and where the money will come from. This money is just being appropriated. It's not about hiring anybody. That's not what this
And to
resolution
the point, Mike, you can
ordinance
say
says.
your budget is now over padded by $163.
And you
can
can take it
point
away if
there,
you want.
but not, this is about
So we
moving
do
the
have a
money.
motion and second. Jim, then we
Take it
can
away,
vote.
give it to the
Yeah, the only
CFC.
question I would have, it'll be more for the budget people. You know, we anticipate all the time of grants that are coming, we incorporate them in the budget as we're producing the budget. You know, now I find it, so I'm going to assume this was not included or anticipated.
That's what I was trying to find in here.
Anticipated as part of a revenue stream.
No, that was not
Okay,
presented.
and then.
Why not?
Then,
Because sometimes they don't get the award until
2
well
days
after
after the
it's
current budget goes in, oh, we have this money now.
When will we notify?
When did you know you were
Rachel,
getting
let
this
it
money?
Okay.
We didn't get the money until mid-November, I think is the correct date. It was sometime in November, it was too late to even get it on agendas for November meetings.
But my point is we anticipate the revenue
But she
in the
said we
budget.
didn't. She just said we don't though.
Oh, yes,
No,
we do.
If
We do it all
they
the
have a
time.
grant award and they have anticipated grants, they're absolutely included in the budget. We do that all the time.
Yeah.
They did not get this award until November.
But it's a.
So how do you anticipate if you didn't know you
They
could-
should have, we should have anticipated it.
How many years have we got?
With this particular grant, there have been years that they were 3 and 4 years behind schedule getting money paid out to the states or the local jurisdictions. As a matter of fact, if you remember, we just had this meeting in February, March of this year from the year prior, and now 7 or 8 months later, we're doing another one because they're catching up. So we have no idea when they're coming out. We really don't.
But the point is, we anticipate it, and if it doesn't come to fruition, it's not there.
You can't do a budget on imaginary money that we may or may not anticipate.
We do that all the time.
We anticipate it all the
No,
time.
that's not the government I want to be.
Well, you voted for it.
No, I know, this
You
was
have
not
to-
included, this was not.
Motion and second, yeah.
So I did not.
But you voted on it.
Let's call the roll.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ken.
Yeah, just a vote.
Traynere,
Yes.
Traynere,
Yes.
Brooks,
Yes.
Ballinger. Yes. Barry,
Yes.
Frizalone,
Yes.
Eustace.
Yes.
Ventura,
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Motion is
Motion carries. Yes.
In all the budget talks, the whole time I was concerned about adding hires with the budget. And so I do think it is something that we still need to be concerned about because it seems like it's a constant thing that we are doing. And in the long run, it does increase the demand on the county financially. So I do think we need to be careful. And whenever we hire two people, it really does need to be estimated what is that financial burden on the county for the lifelong employment of that person. So I think with any grant, if we don't have funding in our budget for employment, we need to rethink about accepting the grant or using it for employment.
Yes. Okay, the next item on the list, agenda is authorize a temporary loan to the county highway tax fund.
Second.
Move second. All in favor? Any opposed? The last item is authorizing the county executive to execute the necessary document for the Lincoln tax program. Move second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Can I have a question about that? Sorry, we kind of do that on the fifth one, and maybe this is just moving money around so the tax money comes in, but it says we're 900 for out, is that the right one? 900? That's what I was gonna have. Yeah, that's why I wanted to check. If it was one of
Other new business? No new business? Any public comments? Public comments? No public comments? Announcement from the chair. Comments, just everybody have a nice Merry Christmas. I think this is our last finance committee meeting of the year.
Oh, I'm gonna see you again, I promise.
I don't think we have a need for an executive session? No? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All in favor? Any opposed?